now.
Hello, I'm Tim. This is Egg Chasers, and once again, having a little head-to-head, and there's a lot to talk about with Rich, the rugby analyst. How you doing, Rich?
Very good, very good. We were having a little bit of trouble with your backgrounds there, weren't we? We almost had Jamie Ritchie being punched in the face, which is a good background.
Do you want Jamie Ritchie being punched in the face?
Well, I've got nothing against Jamie Ritchie, but it's a better picture, isn't it? So I'll put it up.
Come on, then. But then I have to get out of the way. There we go.
Well, up to you. You could maybe just flick around as we're going. It's a good shot.
Okay, yeah, you're on. So this is the first part of a two-part video. The other part will be on Rich's channel, so please go and hit subscribe there and go and watch the second half where we get stuck into a bit of a look ahead at the rugby that's coming. But I'll tell you what, for a week where there's no international rugby, there's a lot to talk about. And, well, let's start with one that will directly affect the conversation I imagine Rich and I have a little bit later, because it's all kicking off in Cardiff. Rich has already got a great video up in his feed on this situation with the potential Wales strike.
So have you. Yours was very good.
Thank you very much, Rich. I appreciate that. But let's build on that chat and bring it all together, Rich. Where's your head at with this situation right now?
You're right, isn't it? Normally in these weeks, you're kind of looking for filler topics, but this one's more than a filler topic, because it's possible that, just imagine this, Wales, England is off in the Six Nations. And I don't want to go over all the stuff we've said in the previous videos, but just the thing is, I actually can't comprehend this happening. The reason I think it won't happen is because the ramifications would just be ridiculous. I mean, it would be the biggest off-field story in rugby, like almost ever. I don't know. Just crazy, isn't it? All the money that would be lost, all the businesses that would be affected, all the fans that would be disgruntled. It would just be absolute. I mean, it would be the most effective strike you could possibly do in one respect, but I don't think, the damage you would do is just not worth it. Even if nothing is sorted by the weekend, I just don't know if the Welsh players have the heart to do it.
Just in case, if you're watching and you're not totally aware, let me just try and briefly just summarise the situation. The WRU and the regions have been at loggerheads for about 18 months, and Rich, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, loggerheads for about 18 months, trying to come up with a deal which funds the sides and the players, 38 centrally contracted players and the rest of their wider squad. They've come to a verbal agreement now, which will involve the regions getting £2.5 million less than they currently do, and the players taking a big hit in their earnings, 20% cut straight away, and 80% of the smaller amount being guaranteed, the rest performance related. And the players have said that's quite hard to achieve. And not only that, the players would be signing up to a deal where potentially, if they have a dip in form, which is a subjective term anyway, they could just have their contract ripped up. Or they could be sent to another region if the WRU decide that that's what they want to do. And the player has no say in any of this. That's as I understand the situation. And the player's response is, this is unacceptable. We want the performance-related part taken out. We want the 60 cap rule restriction removed, or we're not playing against England. I think you're absolutely right in what you say, Rich, though, in that this is a threat which I can't imagine the players actually following through on, because they know how much it would hurt the fans.
It would just be devastating. I don't think like I said, I think there is a moral element to this as well. And I don't think the players would morally justify it to themselves. Either way, whatever happens, they're getting a pay cut. I mean, that's going to happen. I think they accept that. And in your video, you were saying you can see the 60 cap rule going, which is probably the easiest one to get rid of. But then the WRU know they've got players who are now getting paid less, and they have free rein to go abroad. So they must be pretty nervous about that. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts on that, and again, I'll try and... So I don't want to go over anything I said in the other video, because it's all there if you want to watch it. But my thought is that Wales have clearly come up with this system because they've looked at the Irish model and how well that's worked. The difference being in Ireland is that the geography of the country and the established regions of the country and the provinces are already there. So people that live in Dublin feel like they're a Leinsterman or woman. And the same goes for people in Limerick. They feel like they're Munster men as well. So there's that identity and that attachment. Wales just don't have that. And you know that. You know the valleys very well and rugby there. And people feel like they're from Pontypool or Pontypridd or Caerphilly or Newport. And they don't feel like they have that emotional connection with these regions. So the idea was nice, but it doesn't work. And I think the way Wales should look at it is the way Scotland look at it. They should have fewer regions, and they should have a much better Welsh Premiership with some of these old clubs. And they shouldn't worry if some of these players go and play abroad, like Finn Russell does with Scotland, because if they haven't got a lot of money, someone like Finn Russell for Scotland, they'd have to spend a lot of money to keep him, and they can invest that money on the young guys coming through. And I just think that's a more realistic approach for Wales.
Yeah, I think, the WRU are just going to have to get over it. And I mean, you see, say South Africa, there was genuine worry that South Africa's national team would struggle because their domestic teams do not have much money to pay their players. And that hasn't happened at all, because South Africans are so nationalistic. They want to play for their country wherever they are, and they've been as strong as ever. So it probably will be okay, but they're definitely nervous. So do you think, on prediction time, Tim, do you think that is going to go this week?
Well, I think for the reason you said, what I thought initially was, the players are in a really strong position because what a threat. But I actually think the WRU, if they wanted to play brinkmanship, they're thinking this isn't going to. The players aren't going to not play against England.
What's a gamble?
They could take it right to the edge, but I don't. I think it's reasonable with all the other cuts and all the other money to say we're gonna scrap the 60 cap rule. We understand why, but we still would like to keep these players playing at the regions. That would be reasonable. But like I say, these regions are operating on a massive chunk less money, so the money isn't going to be there for these big players. And the career is short. One injury and it's all over. I just think it's unfair to hold them there on less money than they could get elsewhere. When like someone like George North, one more concussion, that could be it.
I tell you what, Tim, you're a good man to ask this. As a rugby journalist, sports journalist, I've had some good comments saying, well, hang on, Ireland generate maybe less money than the WRU do, and those 4 regions do okay. Is this not a case of 4 is too many, but a case of financial mismanagement and governance issues?
Well, I do go and work with BT Sport on the Heineken Cup rugby, and I've been to Munster for games many times. I've been to the RDS and the Aviva Stadium many times with Leinster and to Kingspan, Ravenhill for Ulster. And I've also been to Swansea, and I've been to Llanelli, and you cannot compare the match days there. The crowds, you just cannot compare them. So yes, the Principality Stadium generates more money than the Aviva Stadium for Wales and Ireland, respectively, because there's loads of concerts at the Principality Stadium and all the rest of it. That generates more money.
I see where you're going here.
Might look good on the one level, but the regions are able to fund a greater proportion of the rugby expense because these are well-supported clubs, really, really well-supported clubs.
That's a fantastic answer. Really, really good answer.
In which they are.
Yeah, I mean, Munster, Leinster is essentially like an international sort of thing, It's so fierce. Okay, here you go. I'll chuck one at you then before we move on from this topic. How about they go to East Wales versus West Wales, 2 super regions, a bit of an identity, East and West. I mean, I'm not Welsh, but we've all been there, played there, all that sort of thing. I think there is kind of a East side, Swansea, Llanelli, and a kind of the posh Cardiff side, maybe. I don't know. That could work. Could that work?
100%. I think you're on. That's where my mind goes to. Yeah, Bridgend, Newport, Cardiff, the Ponties, and Swansea, Neath, Llanelli.
Yeah.
I think that's a smart move. I think that's a really smart move. And then you could, then it feels a little bit more special because it's not because like Ospreys, for example, you're trying to put two things together that don't go together. You can't unpick all that history of the bitter Neath versus Swansea rivalry and then just go, oh yeah, by the way, you're all together now.
Yeah,
because it feels a little bit more like a super region, like you say. It feels a little bit more special. Going, all right, we're all together for this. A little bit more like the Lions.
Yeah,
when there's more people coming together to be represented. I like that.
Okay, well there we go. Sorted. Easy. Scrap the 60 cap rule.
WRU, give me and Rich the job.
And then East versus West, done. Easy as that.
Well, you might not need to scrap the 60 cap rule if you did East versus West, because you could probably fund the 38 players.
Yeah, I mean to get this game going ahead against England, though.
Oh, to get the game going ahead, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so done.
Next issue. Oh yeah, go on.
You think it's going to happen then? Yeah.
Are we there? I think the first part of that will happen, and they'll say, "All right, we'll relax the 60 cap rule, and we won't stand in your way if we cannot afford to match market rate offer."
Okay. Let's see if it happens.
It's only a few days now, isn't it? Hopefully, by the time you've watched this video, it's all sorted. But I hope it doesn't go to the end. So next issue on our agenda. I don't really have a picture for this one, so I'll just jump back to the Six Nations skippers. Rich, talk me through what's going on at Leicester Tigers.
Well, I think it just shows you that this issue with obviously, the pandemic, etc., and then Wasps and Worcester leaving the Premiership has really knocked these clubs for six. They're in a state, and Leicester is a good case in point because they're a big club. They've just had a payout, with Borthwick and Sinfield going. In fact, their whole staff is going, isn't it? Wigglesworth is going as well at the end of the season, so they're being gutted
as well.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and still, they're really struggling. Supposedly a £13 million cash injection is needed, which is a hell of a lot of money to stave off administrators. And, this is Leicester we're talking about. So it just shows you that it's not just Wales, it's England as well. The clubs are really struggling for money. There are big issues out here. And
you just touched on it then. This is Leicester. This is quite a frightening situation existentially for rugby in general, because Leicester have got 20, well, I think when they're at capacity, it might be like 23,000 people. They've got the infrastructure and the support base. We were just talking about Leinster and Munster and the like. They've got the support base and the infrastructure to wash its own face and to be a viable business. And if even they're struggling, we have got big questions, and I don't know what the answer to this one is. I know the club's been up for sale for quite some time. Well, they've said they're willing to listen to any offers. I think they were valuing it at £60 million. If anyone would come in and wipe the slate clean, and there hasn't been anyone coming forward.
Absolutely. I mean, it looks like they may have saved situation for now, but of course, it's not good. And other clubs must be, similarly in bad positions as well. So it's not rosy on the English side either. And then we had that kind of palaver of the announcement that Wasps are going to go to six ways for maybe 3 seasons, and then Wasps saying, well, hang on, we haven't actually made that deal complete yet. So it seems like Wasps are in the Championship next year, but it's not confirmed where. And then there's that malarkey with Worcester, who are going to kind of drop down, take over a club almost, drop down, rename, and then maybe gradually work their way up. It's a mess. And then you've got go on, you go.
No, I was going to say the one thing I always thought with all these situations with Wasps and Worcester is I thought, do you know what? Like, if the worst happens and the professional arm of the club isn't viable, then at least all of that history and all of those people that have played for that club over 100 years, at least that won't be gone. The club will still exist in some fashion, and fans of Richmond know that, and London Welsh, where they've dropped right down to the bottom of the pyramid, become a completely amateur club again. And in the case of Richmond, they're back in the Championship again, and a self-sustaining semi-professional rugby club with a really thriving junior and amateur section. But so I thought, at least, you know, Wasps will always exist and Worcester will always exist. What really leaves a bad taste in my mouth is what Jim O'Toole and the consortium at Worcester are doing, where they're throwing all of that history away in order to, from what I can see, take a shortcut down to the third tier or fourth tier to come back up again, rather than go down to the bottom of the pyramid, pay off all of their people that they owe money to, and build themselves back up. So they're avoiding paying these people. Loads of companies are going to go out of business because they're not getting any money. And Worcester are taking a shortcut, but in doing so, throwing away all that history, throwing away the very name of the club.
Yeah.
And I think people in Worcester are really upset about this, understandably. Yeah,
it's a bit of a mess, to be honest. Okay, the other thing I was going to ask you about is Netflix. We've got this Netflix filming in the Six Nations, and they must be rubbing their hands together with all this going on, especially in Wales. But they were shut out. They were shut out of the press conference. Will they be furious, or will they just be rubbing their hands together, saying this is great?
No, well, they should be thinking this is going to make dynamite television. And I'm sure you've been looking at, you know, Drive to Survive as the example that's been used by so many people in rugby for so long. That just exploded the interest and the sense of the relationship between people watching at home and the sport. And I haven't watched F1 for 10, 15 years, but me and my wife, we both got back into it because of Drive to Survive. So when I heard that Netflix had greenlit this Six Nations thing, I thought this could be a game changer. But it seems like, I don't know did you see what Jack Conan said when he was asked about it?
Yeah, doesn't like it.
Yeah, Jack Conan said, I don't think it's going to be as exciting as people are thinking. So, and all of the unions are suspicious that it's going to give other teams an unfair advantage, and so they don't want them to see certain things, and they're vetoing this and vetoing that. It seems like Netflix are going to. Well, it's a bit like the first Lions documentary, Living with Lions, versus the rest that have come since. It's when it gets too corporate, or when you don't see the true thing, when you don't see it all, warts and all, then it's not worth seeing. And it sounds like all of the sides have got issues. And
Absolutely.
as a result, we're not going to see this Welsh story. I get the impression we're not going to see this Welsh story unfold on the show.
I mean, these sorts of TV shows are better when they get the players relaxed. It's natural. They're getting a snapshot of actually what's going on, but they don't want cameras in the changing rooms. They don't want them to hear actually what they say about the other teams, or what the Welsh say about Owen Farrell, or all these sorts of things. You can imagine what goes on inside changing rooms. A lot of it is just to fire players up. They don't actually mean it, but goodness me, if they actually publicise some of the things that were said that you want to go and do to the opposition and why, it might shock people who don't quite understand that, and I get it.
Do I get it?
Go on.
I do, but at the same time, it's like you can't complain that we need a £30 million injection for this club. We've got these regions that are going to get a £2.5 million cut to the budget. We really want rugby to grow, and then be precious about what you show.
Fair point.
I think, and I just don't think I don't think you can have it both ways. And I actually think the players, if the people at the top were supportive of this and just said, look, you know what, we've got your back. Whatever, just be yourself. Go say what you say. Then and everybody knew that everybody else was doing it. Then I think they would let it all out, and it would be incredible. But I suspect what's probably happening is there's like, apparently Ireland aren't doing this, that, or the other. So exactly like you say, are we going to look bad? And maybe we shouldn't. And if they're not doing it, then we're not. And I think that's where we are. So I think it's going to be another massive missed opportunity for rugby, where we just the solution's right there, or one of the solutions is right there, and I don't know.
I've got a bit more sympathy for the coaches, except I don't think they've got a much of a say in the editing either, which is everything. Everything is in the edit, how it comes across. And if they really feel like they could be hung out to dry, it's going to make you wary, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd love to. I haven't actually heard an interview or read anything of the people in like Formula One to know how they manage that process, because the best bits are when you feel like you say, this week, the content, seeing a Wales squad in the week before the England game, you can imagine how the team talks and the feistiness in training, and it's amazing. But you see all of that in the F1 thing. You see it all. So I don't quite know how to square the circle. And maybe it comes down to the fact that, again, these, like I said, the F1 drivers are multi-millionaires with, contracts that are watertight.
Yeah, they don't have a care in the world, really. They have license to be a bit more relaxed about these things. When you've got the Welsh players not knowing if they've got a job next year, and there's cameras in your face saying, how do you feel, and all that. That's why Alan Wynne-Jones said, I'm not starting till they go away. So I kind of feel, I feel for the clubs a bit here.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, Rich. I didn't see it like that, and I really just popped in my head. It's like Alan Wynne-Jones, isn't he a lawyer as well?
Is he? I think
he might be a qualified lawyer.
All right.
I think he might be. So he's the perfect man for the job. Anyway.
Okay. Well.
I don't know, Rich.
There's a lot of issues, before this third round of Six Nations games. That's for sure. I'd love to know everyone's thoughts on it. Pop them in the comments what your thoughts on these issues are, because there's no right opinion and no right answer to a lot of these things.
Yeah, I get that. I feel like we probably just started a conversation rather than concluded anything. But hey, that's what it's all about, and that's what the channels are for, Rich. So,
causing trouble. Discussing. I mean,
exactly. Thank you very much for watching. Hit subscribe on this channel. Go to Rugby Analyst. Hit subscribe there, and that's where you'll find the second part of our chat, which is going to be focused on the rugby.
Oh yeah,
that's coming up next week.
Oh, that.